Boudewijn, thank you for waiting, and I will be happy to listen to your first talk. So maybe some very short words. First of all, please excuse my late run in. This was due to some technical problems at my workplace, which I didn't consider. So yes, I'll be very happy for our today's program, which is mostly regarding from higher towards knowledge and education, which closes the circle from our first day of conference on Tuesday towards technology, or mostly technology issues yesterday. So I will be very happy for our talks today, and especially for our panel discussion in the end. And the first talk is Boudewijn now. Boudewijn, I think the stage is yours.
Okay, Marijke, just a small question. Did you get your panel people together, or are we just going to improvise the people on that, or you leave it open?
I think I have to pass this question to Wolfram, because my information is that especially Wolfram, you, Mrs. Kramer, and me are going to discuss regarding prospective education possibilities, which will be very interesting if it's the four of us, I guess. But I will be very happy for every other person joining in. So I see that Shireen is there as well. So to improvise, I would directly invite Shireen, but yes, maybe Wolfram has some in some further
no, not at all. I'm very happy to change my slots with Shireen, absolutely. I was not prepared to be part of this panel because Funcho Faladi was supposed to be there. Certainly I'm happy to participate, but I'm happier if Shireen does it. So I'm very happy to step back and give my seat to Shireen, or as we like. I think we will have a lively discussion anyway at the end.
And we don't have to structure it so tight. Okay then. All right. Well, thank you very much, Marijke. I'm very happy you're sharing this. We will be going, as far as I see on the number, more for quality than a big quantity of people, but I like this a lot. I was very impressed by this picture, which came out of Wolfram's ISEE Innovation, Science, Engineering, Education book of Africa, and you put this together. And this is exactly how I have felt for the last 20 years, having been in the construction economy. Okay, I always make the joke that especially concrete has the highest number of PhD per cubic meter. Okay, but we had the construction economy is regarded by McKinsey and by The Economist as being very low performing, with a very high failure cost. Okay, and the failure cost is 50% on the job site. So there is a lot of work to be done, and it all fits perfectly in the people, planet, profit model. Jacqueline, especially, this is a shocking picture I showed already last Tuesday about the cement content study in the world. It is totally scary to see it going from 120 kilogram to 380 kilogram for the same strength. Not to talk about durability at all. So we can easily say that education has failed with concrete worldwide. And I am also, as you know, provocative enough to say the following. This is first from Neville, every idiot can make concrete. The problem is they do. And then I always ask the question, which supplier wants to keep it that way? And there is a lot of interest to keep people stupid. So this is very scary. Now, a picture, a screen picture from my favorite animated presentation from Sir Ken Robinson, where he attacks basically, he says, wait a minute, we are eliminating a lot of people, neglecting a lot of people, because we make this big difference between academic and non-academic. And education is basically knowledge, skills, and attitude. Which is very interesting, by the way. My wife was in charge of education and research at the Academic Medical Center, and they said if a surgeon has all the knowledge and is a very good in his skills, but does not have the right attitude, he will be out. I made a little model. I don't know, Marijke, you have a draaistof diagram. What is it in English? I don't know. But I'm happy you don't know either. But basically, we have to move somewhere in between here. The knowledge, skills, and the attitude. And I'll come back to this later. Yes, this is another picture from the RSA Animate on the education, with the youth having far more interesting stuff than they get from the curriculum. So they are distracted a lot, they are interested a lot. So we are really behind with the models we have today. I have to admit, maybe it's part of my own complex I might have. I did mechanical engineering, but I skipped school because I didn't have the discipline, I guess. Went to military service where I learned the discipline, and then I went into a factory to work in Germany to learn a real trade. And I must say I have had personally a lot of pleasure from that, because this helped in turning around a company that was in big problems, because I lowered myself to be an installation crew at a blast furnace in Dunkirk. Okay, but because the customer demanded a performance-based supply from the products. So now what happened is that the supervisor would have never reported about the poor performance of our product. He would not have dared to say to Dr. Bernard Claveau that his product was not robust enough. But because I was there, the boss was knew what was happening, we could correct this. So there is a big request to have more respect and attention to skills and attitudes in education. Now, my question now is, and this is joining a little bit the presentation I was about to give after Jacqueline, is what should we do now organization-wise? What is, I think, is, here are a couple of points I put down. We see the need of exchanging what is being done in pilots. We should be advising what is best local practice. We need a voice in Brussels. The Bauhaus is coming up, and Washington is desperate to get inspired by other technologies and practices. So there should be a natural demand for a place for people that can independently represent the construction materials. We can facilitate youth membership of global participants. I know that RILEM is already doing something to that respect. African students have to pay 30 euros, I think, to adhere. But this could be combined with the people who are sponsoring the Pantheon Performance Foundation platform together with Consensus. So we have to do something. Scholarship for students on all levels. The European Solidarity Corps projects participants. We can organize things there. We can be doing matchmaking for projects, as I saw also yesterday. For instance, what Quebec was doing with recycled micronized glass for cities like Montreal. So it would be easy to say, okay, who is interested in such a joint venture, we'll organize it. We can advise startups, as I'm doing right now with another startup somewhere. We can formulate a verification and testing methods. And the button where it is. We can assist in fixing technological and marketing readiness levels, because who is going to determine what is ready for the market, as we discussed the other day? So an organization like that could say, wait a minute, this is not readiness level 3, it's already 9 in another country. So check it out. And as Jacqueline also knows, in the Netherlands, the 2 big innovations in the concrete technology came from abroad, like the self-compacting concrete and the alkali activated geopolymers. So it would help a lot to identify these technologies. We should we have to publish our manual of sustainable materials for CO2 neutral constructions. This also demands some financial support. The identification of competence classes connected with the Euro model code consequence classes, and classify people who are these professionals. So and others who attended special courses, etc. So I'm very open to your ideas, but basically, I don't know, can you see the screen? I really would like very much to structure this correctly and say, okay, let us sit in the middle of these the knowledge, skills, and attitudes. And by the way, Marijke, your boss in München, he agreed with me on having combining competence classes with the consequence classes. So maybe you can remind him of meeting each other in Eindhoven. Basically, that is my presentation. Are there any questions? I did not see anything on that. Marijke, can you see if there are any remarks or people sticking up their hands? Or
yes, first of all, thank you very much for sticking quite good to the time. As we were a little bit delayed, I would say we have maybe, or we allow maybe 1 or 2 questions. And the first question I think goes to Shireen. So please go ahead.
Okay. Hi, just maybe because I don't know and everyone else knows, what is competence class and what is consequence class?
Okay, the consequence class is if you check it out on the Euro code and model code, they work with consequence classes. That means, let's say you have a sidewalk and it fails, no problem. I mean, it's annoying, but no disaster, okay? If a bridge collapse or a high-rise building, that is high consequence class, okay? And this is, I'm by the way, very happy you asked this question because a lot of people don't know it. And this is so important for deciding where should I test things. And if you do it in a floor or in a foundation or an inside wall where there is no frost problem, you can easily do this. This guides you in innovation implementation.
Totally, I got you. And what was the competence class?
That is a new idea. Okay, so I'm saying if you basically said, okay, you have somebody making this floor, he doesn't have to follow a big expensive course on becoming competent. Okay,
totally got you. I completely got it.
It's my idea. I invented the idea of competence classes. Okay.
No, that totally made sense. When you put it with consequence, I got it. I got it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think we can go back to this in our panel discussion.
Authorize euthanasia when the pain is unbearable. I ask myself, who's going to measure whether my pain is unbearable or not?
Excuse me. I think there were some technical problems, right?
The politicians. I'm the only one who will decide.
I think someone should mute Sunny.
I think so.
Some satisfaction that euthanasia will now be allowed.
Can someone mute Sunny, please?
About the chance of respite for the long suffering.
Daf?
All right. Thank you very much. I think Sunny is muted right now. All right. So I would announce our second talk of the day, and I'm really happy that Mrs. Kramer will give a talk right now regarding Beton Accord Daytime Professional Education Initiative. And I think most of you will already know Mrs. Kramer. She's former Minister of Construction and Environment, politician, scientific, and yes, I think we can wait for a very interesting talk. Stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Marijke. And ladies and gentlemen, very nice to present this talk about the importance of education and knowledge sharing in the context of the concrete agreement. Next slide, please. Well, to inform you about the concrete agreement in a summary version, well, the agreement consists of 4 phases. We have had a preparing phase. That was a phase where a front-runner group of about 82 companies and governments prepared and signed the agreement. Then we had the building phase, and that is a phase in which we are, well, we are still on, but it will last till May 2021. And in the period of September 2018 till now, we have developed roadmaps, instruments, monitoring tool, an innovation program, and procurement guidelines. And they all lead to very ambitious goals that can be reached. I'll come back to that in a minute. And we are now starting to roll out the roadmaps via the procurement procedures of commissioning parties in collaboration with the market. And then we can scale up in that sense all the preparatory instruments, but also the necessary steps to be made. And let the whole concrete sector join the agreement. And then when everything is working well, we can mainstream the whole agreement and end up with the concrete agreement as the new standard and make the Netherlands as guide country for sustainable concrete. Next slide, please. Here's an overview of, next slide, back please. Yes, here's an overview of all the companies, but also governments and also construction companies that are involved, and also the public and private commissioning parties. Next slide, please. In the preparing phase, we formulated 6 objectives. At least 30% CO2 reduction in 2030, but we aim actually at 49, and it turned out that we can even reach in 2030 50 to 60% at least, due to all the preparatory work we did. And secondly, we aim for 100% high value recycling of concrete being demolished, and the creation of net positive value of natural capital in the sense that all what we do in terms of excavation of sand and gravel, that should be after excavation a net positive value of natural capital. And fourth, we promote innovations and social capital, including education and knowledge sharing. And in order to reach these objectives, we have 2 other objectives, and that is we need to cooperate in the concrete chain to enhance sustainability, and we need consistent procurement policies that are ambitious and in line with all our preparatory work, and that has to be organized by the commissioning parties. Next slide, please. The results of the building phase, I'll go very quickly through these results. The basic philosophy is based on the team Circular Design. They developed a construction value model, which is based on the 10 steps in the ladder of circularity. I come back to that in a minute. And that team thinks about sustainable concrete in a much broader sense, including design and also the construction phase. The second team, CO2 reduction, we identified 28 options leading to at least 50 to 60% CO2 reduction. We had a team, natural capital, where we anchored, that's our aim, the results in procurement procedures and in CSC, the Concrete Sustainability Council. Then the fourth team was focused on reuse of concrete residual or streams. And that roadmap led to an objective which is possible of 100% recycling of concrete in 2030 for those streams that are being demolished in a circular manner. And that should become an obligation for every commissioning party. Then we had a team innovation. We had a team environmental cost indicators. Perhaps you are familiar with that. You calculate the environmental costs, and that is based on a model that is also used in Europe. And the team procurement is the team that developed the procurement guidelines based on the roadmaps that I just mentioned. And the last team, and I mentioned that as the last team because that's the focus of the presentation, that is the team knowledge sharing and education. They provided an overview of the education at all levels: secondary vocational education, higher vocational education, and scientific education. And that work is finished, but the work will be continued by the Concrete Society. Next slide, please. I already referred to the Dutch construction value model based on the ladder of circularity, the 10 steps. And here you see the overview of all the different aspects that should be included when we talk about sustainable concrete chains. And it's not only the material, but it's also the way you design. You think about refuse, reduce, rethink from a perspective of design. And of course, what can we do to reuse, for instance, concrete? And also, how can we repair, refurbish, and remanufacture and repurpose before we recycle? Well, it's just a philosophy that I think that is also important for our panel discussion, because my view is that the younger generation is much more integrated in this holistic approach and also in new applications, in the sense of using digital technologies and being much more into the design in combination with digital technology than at present, where the focus is much on material. Next slide, please. Here we have an overview of the main focal areas of the innovation program that we are going to launch next week. That is CO2 low concrete, lifetime optimization, smart modular and adaptive design and circular building. That relates to what I just said about the value model. CO2 reduction in the concrete industry and in the transport chain. And we start this program by matching the commissioning parties with market parties that are interested to further develop the innovations that we have identified. And when these will be developed and tested, they will be validated by a newly established concrete innovation counter. And we hope that that can accelerate the process of implementation of these innovations and also the next step of certification. Next slide, please. Then 3 slides about, and that are my last 3 slides, about the educational program. That is at present installed on concrete, and particularly sustainable concrete. Well, what I already said, with the educational system in architecture and also civil engineering is concentrated on 3 different education levels: secondary, vocational, higher professional, and scientific. And when you look at what is happening now, then you see that 30 schools in the Netherlands have a curriculum in architecture and civil engineering in general. But what we have seen the last decades is that there was a strong decrease in knowledge of concrete in basic programs. And that made it makes now also hard to discuss sustainable concrete. But luckily in 2010, the Concrete Society and also the Concrete Association started a minor in concrete construction in cooperation with 1 single school and several companies. And that really helped. And in 2015, the update learning outcomes, that was a chance for the concrete industry to link with education, and both the society and the association work hard on establishing this link. And also in the context of this innovation program, we really focus on establishing this link with all the educational programs in order to really anchor what we are doing also in new curricula, but also get input from the younger generation. And what we see then that since then, sorry, it should be an E, this minor is adopted by 9 out of 30 educational programs. So that is already an improvement, and a number are now interested. So we hope that this minor will be a trigger for more. And sustainability is a part, of course, of this, and a substantial part of this minor. Next slide, please. When we look at what is happening at higher professional education, well, there are 13 universities of applied science, and they have curricula in general on architecture and civil engineering. And here, the last decade, you see a concentration on concrete design, but strong decrease in the knowledge of concrete technology in the basic program. So you see that this whole idea of concrete design and this interest also of students in new technologies, digital technologies, that is becoming stronger, but basic knowledge on materials not. Sustainability as a catch-all is established at all these universities, and concrete technology is highly dependent on the interest of the teachers. And visiting lectures try to fill this gap, but more likely one of them structural solution for the problems that we face. And scientific education, well, there we have at the TU Delft a focus on circularity in the Faculty of Architecture, and the Faculty of Engineering, civil engineering, is focusing on engineering and construction materials. So there is interest and also research, and the same in Eindhoven, focusing particularly on engineering. Last slide, please. Well, the to-do list we have is to really strengthen the education programs of sustainable concrete, but in the context of this broader approach of the sustainable concrete chain and design and the value model I explained. The secondary vocational education, well, there we will put an effort to get more schools on board and invite students to events like the National Concrete Day, and also arrange traineeships for students in concrete industry. And that's also what we try to do with the innovation program. Really match with the education systems. Higher professional education, well, there we also want to arrange traineeships and facilitate graduation assignments in the concrete industry. And the same holds for scientific education. You know, well, the same thing, arrange traineeships, facilitate graduation assignments, and also accommodate doctoral thesis in sustainable cement and concrete. So my well, reflection on all of this is when we really want to make concrete and the whole chain sustainable, we really need to work together with the younger generation and also see how their interest can coincide with the work to be done in order to become sustainable. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this extremely interesting talk. Really, thank you very much. With regards to the time, I would allow one, maximum 2 questions. I have a burning question myself, but first of all, Wolfram is raising his hand, so please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Jacqueline. It was impressive, and it was also a good example that in Netherlands things work much more efficient than in Germany. I think where we would need about 10 years just to set up the committee to plan this. But anyway, I'm quite amazed by this. Just 2 very short questions. Who decided about those 82 forerunner companies? And is it who decided, did they have to pay something for the participation? And what qualified them to be forerunners? And how big were the teams that worked in the different topics you presented?
Well, we invited companies and also local governments and the national government to join forces in the face of, setting up the agreement. And well, that was actually a question of who really thinks as a company that they need to be there in order to don't miss the boat, let I put it that way. So there were very proactive companies, but also some companies were involved that just wanted to see what was happening in order to see whether they should take action or can wait. So it was a mixture of people, not only the front runners in industry, but it were, of course, people that thought, well, we have to prepare ourselves, otherwise it becomes a problem for our company. And the teams were about, size of 10 members, and we tried to set up teams that were representing the different companies that were needed to really prepare for the specific task to be done. And the steering committee, they said, well, in this case, it is not really a representative group. You need to find other people and so on. Nobody got paid. It was all free time or time of the company. Nobody paid. Only we had some money from the government to carry out some research, but it was not basic research, of course, it was just some studies to get everything clear. And they also financed a very small secretariat consisting of a person for 3 days a week and me a couple of days a month. So that is it. Lean and mean.
Thank you very much. Then maybe a very short question from my side or a comment. So when you presented the 10-hour ladder slide, you mentioned sustainable choice of materials. And I really love our all-in-all approach from concrete industry, concrete science, universities to make concrete more sustainable. But to be totally honest, in some cases, it's just very important that we really stick to sustainable materials, which are not cementitious materials most probably, but it's renewable materials like wood or clay, or for example. So what is missing in education, universities, higher education, is to have an overall look in materials. So very often it is only concrete, and then we say, okay, let's make concrete more sustainable. But concrete bubble completely misses the wood in the world. So do you have in your initiative, is there also the regard to more materials than only concrete?
Yes, well, a very good question, Marijke. In the first place, we really looked at, well, the way we can make concrete in terms of materials more sustainable. Via geopolymers or calcinated clay, or there were alternatives, and Boudewijn knows much more about that can at least substitute the regular cement. And as long as cement is not sustainable because of the CO2 emissions, we very much focus on substitution by better alternatives. In one of the innovation clusters, namely the cluster where we look at the modular and adaptive design and circular building, there we say, well, it's nonsense to work just with concrete, because we talk about design, and that is a construction, that's a building that can also be a combination. So there you see crossovers between working with other sectors like wood. So there we set up demonstration projects or living labs, as you will, but in close cooperation with concrete industry, where we work in a much broader context than just the concrete.
Thank you very much. And I think this is something we also can talk about in the panel discussion later on.
All right.
So I would go over to the next talk. And actually, I think Boudewijn, it's on you to say who's talking, because I only have best practice and pilot project data bank either from Globe or Pantheon Performance. So Boudewijn, please tell me who's the next speaker regarding this.
Boudewijn, you're still muted. Can you unmute yourself?
I sent you, typically me, a last minute message that basically I incorporated the idea in my first presentation, okay? The need to get the structure, the need to get the data bank, the need to get to help with identifying best practices about so I incorporated that in my first presentation. And so there is room for further questions on what Jacqueline just presented to us. And if nobody has questions, I have an interesting case story, I would say, which is basically related to how to catch talents in the early stage. That is, but maybe somebody else has questions. Marijke, it's up to you. No?
I think there are no more questions from the panel.
Oh, okay. I would like to mention a particular case. Jacqueline knows what it means, ROC. It is let's say it's a vocational school, okay? And in Nijmegen, we were requested to give a presentation about concrete. And we had, I took somebody along who was able to put in the fire, we had 2 hours long, standing room only, people sitting, all these young kids, they were not sitting in Epping, the whole time on their phone. They were totally mesmerized by the magic of concrete, okay? And after 2 hours, they said, when are we going on? And I said, well, you tell me. And a young boy in the front row said, next week, Wednesday. So I saluted to him and said, next week, Wednesday, stir. So next week, Wednesday, I was there. And I said, okay, we are going to make together with you guys a concrete table, number 3. Number 1 is in my garden. Number 2 is on the icing skate ring in Uden. And the third one, we will make here for this school. And then the carpenters will do the mold making, and we will teach you how to make concrete with 5 binders if you want, with admixtures, and show the whole thing. And everybody was enthused except the head teacher. And he said, well, I give him the addresses. You have to be there for the raw materials. You have to be there to do the demonstration. And the head teacher said, I'm not going to get paid for that. I am not interested. So I have now the horrible conscience that we left maybe 50 students expecting, we're still waiting on this. So my big question, and we don't have an answer for this maybe yet, is how do we get students in the talents in the early stages towards materials? And the other thing is what I would like to mention is The only way we saw the concrete society getting to move their ass was because the wood industry came about. So they see the challenge of books, fantastic books like this one, Tomorrow's Timber. That is the only way. And I was in the beginning against the Beton Accord. Jacqueline probably knows that, because I said we don't have a windmill agreement, we don't have a solar panel agreement, we have a energy agreement. And so the rivalry between these materials will bring out the best. But thanks to a new president from the Concrete Society, it was a she, said on Concrete Day, she talked about concrete shame. So all the roosters on the manure pile, they got scared and they fluttered all over the place. But she was, with her courage, able to put energy into this whole thing. Now, the other thing about Jacqueline is capable of managing all these people with double agendas, maybe, and the greenwashers and so on. I couldn't do that. I wouldn't have the patience for that. Thank God she does. So and I discovered that she is still, after many years, I would say, an activist. Okay. Thank you, Jacqueline. So, are there any other? I believe it's further up to you, Marijke. But my key question: how to catch talents in an early stage before they go to a far more sexy field?
All right, so one question maybe. So first of all, to stick to the program, you had another point regarding edutainment in concrete, Kano. Is that something you're going to present, or shall I directly answer to your question and introduce the panel discussion?
No, this is what I really would like to present, if I may. Perfect.
Then I would postpone your question, how to catch talents and catch them up with more sustainable concrete, to our panel discussion, because this is really a thriving question. And I would leave the stage for you and the presentation of edutainment.
Thank you. Okay, so let me just go one back. So basically, that is my question I already posed, okay? How to get the passion in the construction economy for the sustainable transition. That is our challenge, okay? And I saw in one school, Jacqueline knows what it means, a saying by Loesje, if it's fun, you learn it automatically. And this is basically my objective. How can we do this? How can we make it fun? Now, okay, we have 40 years of concrete canoe building and racing. And Marijke, you participated in one of them, and you had a lot of fun with it. And many other people, they still talk about it, okay? So it was initiated in Illinois. Great memories about building, paddling, especially partying, you know. And I know that many are now leaders, and this has to be continued. That's fine. But these are the shortcomings I see from the concrete canoe thing. The materials and the production methods are far from reality. You know, so there's no link with factory production of concrete. The sustainability, of course, was not a word that was known 40 years ago and has not been reintroduced at this moment. then we have this crazy question, everybody, when you talk about concrete canoes, say, concrete, does it float? And then you can say, and steel, what do you think a super tanker is made of? Okay. But so it's not necessarily adding to the image of concrete. And can we say that we are at par with solar decathlon and the solar races? I don't think so. Now, this is also what I took out of the book Wolfram published, the teaching methods. It's by a study from somebody in the United States. And you see that the lecture is not very efficient. And teach others immediately use. And this is what I will eventually come out of. This will guide us in which direction we should look for a very good education. And we can say, our present teaching methods, are they up to date and up to standard? I know, Marijke, you teach, and several others who are right now listening in on are teaching, and you can answer that question better than my suspicion, okay? But the economy should be very interested in education because it saves money if you do it right. So, and there is always money for, by the way, for good education, I think. Now, this is my idea. And it's an idea that is already 10 years in the drawer. And I worked it out 10 years ago with 2 students from France who are in the event organization education. So, and I worked it out with a professor from TU Delft as well 10 years ago. Okay. And it's basically in 3 steps. First, minds. You have low cost virtual design using hybrid structural solutions like concrete, steel, timber, and hybrids. Just design paper. The second one will be models, and you know that you can make these models with the prisms, and you can do that basically in your kitchen even to make these prisms, these mortar prisms. And some people have been in Boudewijn in The Hague to see the miniature Netherlands, which is still charming, even grown-ups. So, and then of course you have the 3rd year, you do masterpieces, full-scale pilots. And there, of course, money is needed. But by that time, we should have mobilized the industry, mobilized governments to do these pilots. And some preliminary conditions on this. And this is very challenging, but they coincide with the presentation Jacqueline gave on the construction value models. Okay. And she improved there's a ladder of Kramer, we call it, going from refuse and then 8 more points to the last point is recycle. Okay, but this is the idea. They should be reusable. You should these pilots should be able. You should be able to convert them in multi-purpose applications, modular, reusable. So you have all these students thinking about how the hell do we do this? How can you use a panel for something for multi-purpose applications. That is basically the challenge. Okay, now teach other discussions, demonstration, practice are all included in the competition model. So the best with the highest retaining capacity. And I will come back later on teach others idea. Okay, because students will question present curriculum. They will be, they really will give you a hard time, at school. Wouldn't that be fun? I don't know. So they will search for best practices. Kids in Africa will not look for blast furnace slag because there are no blast furnaces in Africa. Okay, they will look for rice husk ash and they will and other alternatives. So they will search the globe for that. They will not copy paste what we are doing wrong in Europe. Okay, so the authorities will have to justify present regulations because we will say, Mr. Bundesamt Minister, why do we use this water binder ratio in Germany like this, while in across the border they have another one? Well, what is this? Could you please explain? So we will face the authorities also to help with the present regulations. The participating schools in this particular engineering competition would be identified and say, hey, there must be great schools. I would like to have students coming from that school. So this is a selling point for them. You see that financing of education meets ambitious green game changer investors, especially the public investor, but also the private people. They will say, hey, we have these this kid that participated in this engineering competition. So the supplier will sponsor with sales engineering ethically their most exciting sustainable products and services. They will present it, and they can be cornered on greenwashing by these so-called innocent students. Okay, not knowing all the hurdles of the business. So this is a phrase I took from the inauguration from Biden, dare dream together. Okay, and I'm by the way very happy to have met Esther from Nairobi, that we have sociology on board. We have now also students, economical students on board. Okay. Now, this is a crazy idea, but again, I would like to remind everybody, this is a 3-year program to realize it. So I'm sailing in Greece 2 times 2 months a year. I know what monasteries have done, are doing also in the Netherlands. I visited in the past these monasteries. It's fascinating. So it would be interesting to say, okay, let's get these monotheistic religions together and have dialogue and sit on the same table. And basically there is a whole story behind this table of Cherno Bokar, which is a philosopher from Mali. So The other idea would be, but that's of course because I love sailing. It is basically what I call the 4D, the Dakar, Dominica, Drapers, Delaware race, cargo catamaran, a transatlantic race. I don't know if you saw the America's Cup recently won by this fantastic sailboats with the wings, great technology. But we can have also great technology for cargo ships. But it's all, again, it's first on paper, and then models, and then we'll do it. So upon arrival, the cats can be converted for coastal protections, for harbor reinforcement, or making buildings. And since I sailed 20 months in the Caribbean, I know the area very well, the culture. It is fascinating, okay? So the technical and social sciences work and play together. And here's again the big question, who can organize it? I have some idea about the European Solidarity Corps. And with some people from Morocco, I'm working on the idea of having a training center for refugees that are economical refugees and have to go back to a country somewhere in Africa. But instead of giving them pocket money and a new T-shirt and some new Nikes, we can give them education. Or they can become teachers for construction. This way they will be coming back and say, wow, am I ever happy that I was sent back to Mali or so, you know? So we have this, in the Netherlands, this horrible right-wing party that is always arguing with about the refugees. And the biggest party says, well, we have to keep them in the region, the refugees, and we will pay Erdogan for that. We can say we do education in the region and not giving the development aid to corrupt governments. But if we have these centers, and I'm in discussion with the embassy of the Netherlands in Rabat, Morocco, on the subject. Let's train the trainers and in sustainable construction in general. So we should realize that construction is for and by the people. So learning and constructing together. We have I explained already the passion, the personal passion I have for this monasteries, monotheistic monasteries, as I volunteered in Greek refugee camp in 2015, and the need for dialogue was extremely dire, and we could do that. Now I see that it is stuck here. Okay, so this is my idea about a vocational training center in the Mediterranean. And one Dutch-Moroccan liaison friend of mine is listening in right now as well. So we can materialize that. Now this is indeed my personal passion, but don't hold yourself on this. So the stories are available as well, cultural as technically, and we could mobilize more than 20 countries. But I don't want to stick to this particular idea only. There might be many more that puts the flame and the passion in sustainable construction. So And we should realize that this is food for the human resources of the construction companies, because they would start reducing their failures, and they would be investing in these competence classes of the people. And this is the second is an old formula. If you have new technology in an old organization, you end up with an expensive old organization. I've seen that over and over again. And if somebody is looking for a job and he is asking, what is your sustainability policy of a company, they will see that this is a guy or girl has the potential of you know, being very critical but constructive. So again, if you take part in this, you have something special on your CV. And one of my favorite formulas, RIO2, return on investment by involvement. So, and here is the last one, is educated candidates can be identified as nomads of knowledge, skills, and attitude. But again, it's only a dream. It's a very low cost, but very rich dream, in my opinion, at least. And we can modify Bob Marley's Raft at Man vibrations, really positive. Raft being, of course, the catamaran. Pilots for the Caribbean, they will be suffering from climate change. They are already, and or we can have this trademark made in demand. Okay, but in general, I feel that sustainable construction deserves a high-tech image from, and we cannot get that from an engineering competition. So please let us dream a little together. Thank you very much. I think that was it. Yes, it was it. Okay.
Thank you very much, Boudewijn, for your inspiring words. So, are there any questions, comments to Boudewijn?
Ooh, what did I do wrong?
Yes, Wolfram, please.
I'm not sure because Shirin switched on the camera before me. I don't know if this is
Sorry.
a symbol
you
for...
You were the first one to raise your hand, okay. So I would give it to you.
Well, I think they are quite... I think it's an interesting concept to really showcase a lot of things on a very global scale. But the question is, as always, who's going to finance that? And that makes it such a big problem. I think this is, I'm really not directly asking a question, but I would rather like to put that into the panel discussion later. Good education also requires funding. And particularly if we talk about pilots, they need a lot of funding. And unfortunately, mostly this funding is not there. So maybe we can just put this on the tick-off list in the panel discussion as well, to ask about how expensive is good education going to be. So this is not a question, it's more a statement.
Thank you very much. Very good statement, actually. Questions? Because if there are not, and we are already shortly behind the time, I would directly open up into the panel discussion and would love to come back to, again, Wolfram. So if you might like to switch on your camera again. Boudewijn, Mrs. Kramer, please.
But I thought I would be replaced by Shirin, probably.
Okay.
And another proposal that I would like to make, but I don't want to be, well, to stress someone too much, but we also have a PhD in engineering education in this panel. I know that she is far away in Australia and probably very tired at the moment, but I would propose probably I mean, I was not expecting myself to be on the panel, rather Funchu Falade. I'm very happy to let someone else sit there, like Shirin, who's already proposed democratically. And maybe I would just recommend maybe we can ask Esther Matemba as well, if she wants to participate in this.
I just see she switched on her camera, so this sounds great.
We are lucky.
Thank you.
Please, thank you. Maybe you can introduce yourself.
So my name is Esther Matemba, and yeah, so I'm an engineering education researcher. I finished my PhD last year. Yeah, and I'm also a civil engineer. So yeah, so I've been following on sustainability and the discussion today, but I missed yesterday's and a bit of the first day discussion. So I hope I can still answer some questions or give my ideas. I live in Perth, but I'm a Tanzanian.
All right.
Thank you. Really nice. So maybe Shirin, you also could introduce yourself because maybe not everyone knows you already.
Okay, so I'm Shirin. I'm a PhD student and hopefully I'm finishing in a few months. I work on fresh concrete rheology. No, I work on fresh concrete rheology, more material scientist, I would say. I have a little bit of experience in a structural design and optimization. What else? And I'm probably shifting back to structural design as well. I have a neck for radical discussions as such, education, young generation, women, and so more. I live in Germany, in Dresden, and I'm originally from Iran. So I'm a Middle Eastern. And actually that made me question, so when Ms. Kramer and Boudewijn were talking, it brings a lot of questions to my mind. That how do you want to encounter, for example, there are always these talks that we are talking about what European things, what American things, what US government like, what European government like. But for me, the area that have the most construction are not Europe, it's not US. How do you want to implement any type of dream or idea to these people? Like totally, it's brilliant to say that students, the young generation are important, but you cannot change the opinion of younger generation as long as you are not influencing the opinion of their teachers. And how do you want to change the teachers? You know, that is really hard to access the mind of some rigid fossils, because I took my bachelor with these people, and I know the society, I know how hard it is to make any slight change in teaching methods. So for me, it's, you know, this is just maybe my Middle Eastern background.
May I make a comment on this?
Yes, sure, sure.
That's why it's so fantastic to have Africa on board. They are they can say, wait a minute, what do you mean? You know, it's like saying, should we use the EN206 from Germany or from the Netherlands? They can question. You can start, I would say, fresh from scratch, almost. You can question everything. So this is such a great hope. But I don't know what Jacqueline thinks about your question.
Well, I'd like to respond to Shirin saying that, well, we can focus on students, but if the students are not allowed by their teachers to do the work that they really want to do, or they have the ideas that are new and that are not accepted, then they're stuck. That's your point. And so we also have to teach the teachers. Well, in the Netherlands, we now also set up not only programs for the students, but also for the professionals. And when you see what is needed to well, shift to sustainable concrete, a lot has to be done also with the current people in industry. And that's also what I like to discuss. There's a couple of things. In the first place, my assessment is that the younger generation doesn't like so much the classical material science, but the material science, which also includes the new techniques and also sometimes the broader view on construction and design. Is that correct, Esther and Shireen? Well, because I have to, in the Netherlands at least, we really have a problem to get students interested in classical materials. They think it's old stuff and it's not really sexy, so they are more interested in the new stuff. Is that a correct assessment?
Yes, I would agree with that, because I think part of my PhD was looking at just early career engineers, and they were telling me how they don't think their education was useful because, like you're saying, it was more like classical things. It was all theoretical, and they would have loved to have it all practical and looking at things and touching and everything, you know. So I think that's the way they wanted it to be, but it didn't work out for Africa anyways, in the schools that I went to.
And for me personally, it was never about material. It was mostly about, I would say, structural analysis. So what I learned in school during my bachelor is hand analysis. So 10-story building, I did, for example, I swear it was 4 hours. So 4 hours, and I had to hand analyze the structure with only a calculator. And I never used it ever again. And instead, if I was taught few useful softwares and the proper use of, let's say, standards and codes, that would be much more useful for me. Instead, I didn't learn anything useful up to the age, I think up to my last semester, that I suddenly had to do a project out of a sudden with no prior learning on how to do a project. And it was, I would say, a really stressful time for me. I could barely sleep, and I had to learn so much software and norms and stuff. So I would say the teaching methods, what they teach you at a school, the way that it's like it's a passive learning method. For me, it's really tiring. I usually fall asleep in classes. Teachers are a lot of time monotone. So for me, this part was more like, that was the unsexy part. The science was nice. The way that it was taught to me was repelling, I would say.
But with this, I would say this is extremely depending on, I think Mrs. Kramer already said this is subjective. So it's always depending on actually the person who teaches you and how the person, it's good to say we have to teach the teachers or we have to set up good programs, because of course they are always extremely boring professors and not the very best curricula. But there are also examples where it's already really good working. So even the concrete cano. So material sciences in Germany also is extremely unsexy, but there are a couple of good examples, especially at universities of applied sciences. But I know also universities where they really try to make material sciences more popular, to invest in very cool projects with some outcome where other students see, okay, they did something. And this is always dependent on the person who gives their personal time, because this is always added to the normal working time, added to the normal lectures time, and especially added to the normal research and like the thing that mostly counts in science is research outcome, numbers of publications, etc., fundings, like research fundings. So if there is a person who is really much into that, they will give their additional time to very nice projects. And these projects work already pretty nicely, and I would say all over the world, because I'm currently in an international project from all over the world where also very engaged professors are into that. And if there is an engaged professor, the students follow, and they follow extremely. I love to see that. So if you're someone going in front, students are going to follow. But we need more programs and we need more popularity for professors or for extra jobs, for research assistants, or for only teachers, not professors, but maybe teachers who offer these additional projects, that material sciences get more sexy for broader, for more people.
Yeah.
I want to say something, but Wolfram hand is up.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't want to interrupt. You are the panel.
I wanted to say something on continuation to Marijke's word. For me, it's a difference. If you are talking about, let's say, people who are age of 20 to 30, who are, let's say, the young researchers, or if you are talking about generation which is below 20 years old. So for me, these are different. And I think the way you need to treat them is also different. If you want to keep younger generation interested, it means that it will be in Grundschule. Oh my God, what happened to my English? To elementary school or high schools. And when you're talking researchers, it's master and PhD students. So these are different type of people. Anyone who goes for a master degree is already interested in that subject, or anyone who go for a PhD. But the point is, how can we make this high school kid or this elementary school kid interested in staying in some, make, let's say, material science or structural design sexy for them?
I think with this, either Wolfram or Esther could perfectly reply.
Yeah, so I feel like we are in a time when a lot of materials are available and a lot of interesting things are out there in the internet and everywhere. So all the young people actually know that they're good teachers, they're good materials. So when they use, maybe for example, they use YouTube. YouTube explains things better. They go to their lecturer and the lecturer is not doing, like half of the things they see on YouTube. So we need to understand that this is a generation that is very well informed. They know what to expect. So you need to also work with them that way. You don't work with them like during our days when we were just waiting for the information from the lecturer. We didn't have any other way. The lecturer would give us the material, they would give us everything. But right now, they actually know more than we know. So they can access materials that is more interesting. They know the websites to go. They know the things that they want to do. They actually even know what the job is all about sometimes. So they would really want to be connected. First, they want to be connected to the real, authentic job. Like, what are the people doing in materials engineering or materials science? And just show them the reality of what to expect. They don't want to be left in the dark. And that's how I think the young people are. And if you can deal with them that way, then you get a lot of respect from them. That's why most of the time good teachers, even when they don't know things, they're actually very honest and say, okay, I haven't researched that one. And the students will be very receptive of that instead of the know-it-all people. So that's my opinion, I think.
Wolfram?
Well, but I also have to honestly say, I agree to the point of view that we have to try to make the curriculum more sexy for civil engineering. But at the same time, I have my challenges with the claim teach the teachers, because that is as paternalistic as teach the students. We can also not ask the students to decide what they have to learn, because the students are just in the beginning of their profession. And we also have to trust a little bit in the institutions. I also criticize the institutions, but at the same time, we also have to trust in those people who have a long-term experience. And certainly I fully agree to what Esther says, that the students today have more sources to get information, but at the same time, there's also much wider variability of the sources, which can also rather increase the confusion. And so we cannot let the students decide what they are going to learn. And at the same time, also complaining about the manual calculations. I think we still have to teach a little bit of the fundamentals, even if it's hard, and even if we have to go through that, and afterwards we can be proud that we have gone through it. And I think I overheard in your words that you're also a little bit proud that you can do it, because many people can't do that anymore today. I think the biggest problem is that we have to link this theoretical part also with the applied part. So we have to teach something which is fundamental. We still have to go through that. If we have never understood the fundamentals, we cannot really be good engineers in the future, but we have to understand why we learn the fundamentals. And I think that's the point when Esther said we have to, the students bring much more knowledge or much more information. In the meantime, they get much more information. We have to really, this is basically what I said on Tuesday, that we have to mutually learn. So the teachers have to learn from the students, but at the same time, the students have to accept they can also learn something from the teachers. So it is more like a teacher should be the manager of the knowledge of the students, so that together with the students, they both can elevate to a higher level. And I think this is what is really required. It's absolutely true. Many teachers continue to teach the same kind of stuff for 30 years, and they do not really evolve in their mindset. And this has to change. And I think we still have to continue believing that the dry theoretic part has a sense, but we have to always link it with something that the students who have to learn it know why they learn it. And this is at the moment, I think, still not the case.
Marijke, may I make a little comment on that, please? Mm-hmm. First of all, Esther, I think indeed the internet, the YouTube movies, they should have been on the list of things to be done for us. If we can launch 5-10 minutes movies on the basics of it. The second thing is, I have a nephew who is right now doing a work learning program. He is 3 days working on a job site and 2 days studying in school. So I immediately asked, isn't there the danger that you become smarter than your teacher? And then he said, well, the teacher is also somebody from the fields, from the business. So there was a confidence immediately there. So this is a very interesting link, I think, if we could establish that. But again, I'm sorry, I'm coming back to my game, my toy, and that is the engineering competition. This way, it will not be paternalistic, Wolfram, to teach the teachers. They will teach automatically because they are involved. And they see, you see grown-ups become kids, you know, that's fantastic. And this is, by the way, all about that. What I am saying, what is Sir Ken Robinson is doing. And this makes me, give me immediately a link to Robert Obernaus Emler from Leoben. Are you listening in? And can you please demute Robert on this, because I'd love to hear his opinion. Robert, are you there?
I think he already left.
Ah.
I saw his name, but I think he left.
Too bad.
I think he sent 2 links. Or no, it's another Robert. Sorry, you are talking about another Robert. There are 2 Roberts.
Oh yeah, unfortunately I have to rush to another meeting. It was a great pleasure following your event, Boudewijn. I will shoot you a mail on the showcase of getting young people and kids involved in technical disciplines from the mining fields. Looking forward to further discussions, okay? This is a guy from Leoben, apparently mastering English pretty well, I would say, for an Austrian. We can speak now frankly. So he could be also an asset of people to continue this discussion, because I think it is very valuable. By the way, Esther, Wolfram knows it, that and the fourth day when we had this event in Dar es Salaam on these 18 students, I don't think you were in that, huh? When we were teaching 18 young researchers, I took them to a job site that was the airport, which was a Dutch company, Jacqueline knows, the BAM. They were constructing a new terminal, and I took them to the job site. Now, my question is also, what is the last time that the teacher went to a job site? And how often have you been sent to a job site and put your feet in the mud?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah?
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Should I
Yeah,
contribute?
sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the idea of competitions, and I think so. I teach in Perth, in Australia as well, and we have only in design engineering like an introduction to engineering subject where we do like a competition type of competition EWB project. So it works very well with the students, and I've always wanted to take these competitions back home. And I love the idea of using the discipline subjects, because that's what they are like in Tanzania. We have the disciplines are still separate; they're not combined. And I think the competition will be very well accepted by the students. I know the teachers will take time to come around, but they're very good. And when you're talking about visiting a site, I would say that thing has been on my mind so much, is that we had a construction site at the university when I was teaching University of Dar es Salaam, and some of us were involved in the projects, the lecturers, but there was no mention, or we tried, but there was no mention that we could take our students around to the site, which is like behind their own classrooms. And nobody really thought it was important for these students to actually see what was going on. And it was very strange, because the sites were actually going on just there. There were like 8 projects within the university. So there were tall buildings, small houses, everything. And many students could have benefited so much from just going for a site visit, but we didn't have that. So yeah, I would say I did not take my students to sites, and it is not about the teacher not wanting to, but the structural systems existing in the engineering education in maybe in Tanzania or in the university do not allow you to. So you would have a lot of what should I say? Like there will be a lot of issues, like you have to get permission, you have to do this, and it becomes too hard for a lecturer, and you'll be like, okay, it's fine. I'll just show them from far, that there's a building coming up out there. So there was no connection between the actual job and the education that we're teaching.
But shouldn't companies be interested for having good employers, and they should proactively be engaged? Don't you think so, Esther?
I think so, and I think part of my PhD was also asking the same questions, because I felt like industry was very separate from academia, to the point where if you ask industry what they know, they wouldn't say anything. There's only one point where they meet though. There's a practical training every year, and students get assigned the placement. So for 8 weeks, and I think that was the only place that even myself, that's where I actually got to apply the theory in practice, and I think that's a very good thing. But not everyone get a good placement as well. So it wasn't for not everyone got a good placement. Some places there won't be jobs. and I felt like the need for industry to actually just step in and get their students. And the industry actually offered jobs. So they did offer jobs for the practical training, but not on a daily basis, like you can just visit the site. Or I think it's just the issue of communication between the universities and the industries, because technical universities, technical colleges actually do that a lot. They do a lot of site visits.
May I, Marijke, may I introduce one of my victims for innovation of naughty concrete, okay? Robert Gombald, could you demute Robert Gombald? Robert, are you there? Robert is there.
Yes, I'm there.
Okay. Hi, Robert.
Hello.
I put Robert renewed his farmhouse, and I got him crazy enough to buy concrete that was outside of the specs, but he also did the installation with hempcrete inside and installation techniques. This is a marvel, his new farmhouse house, okay? Robert, please tell us what you found.
Yeah, we bought this farmhouse in 2008. It's approximately built in 1600. And in 2015, we started to renovate it. And well, we took our time, so it's almost finished now, 6 years later. This building is more than 200 years old, and our ambition was to really make it ready for the coming 200 years. And the keywords we used in doing that was comfortable, healthy, double duurzaam, which means both sustainable and durable, and beautiful. And actually, I met Boudewijn when we were at
fair.
Was it a breakfast meeting, talking about bio-based materials, and he told me about the possibilities to have sustainable concrete, and we decided to use that in our in the floor of our farmhouse. So we are almost finished, and in the chat I gave 2 links to programs that could be interesting to look at. It's both online education, and the first one is a prize-winning program made by the Technical University in Delft, and they all put it on AdX, an organization that gives education, and I think there are over 260 universities that make programs that they share. This prize-winning program is free of. You can follow it free of charge. It's about zero energy design, an approach to make your building sustainable. So this could work for every building. It's free of charge at this moment, and there is also possibility to follow this program, and then you pay for it. In this case, you pay 41 euros. And then after you followed the complete education, you get proof that you followed this education. So I was thinking this could be something that we could use as well for education on concrete, make interesting programs.
And wood
and all kind of construction materials, of course. And then you can follow the program free of charge if if you want to, and if you really want to have to make sure that you follow the complete program, then you pay for it and you get a certificate that you followed the program. So I hope you find that interesting as well.
Maybe you can include it in the competence consequence class idea, that if something has low consequences, I'm sorry to put it like this, but you don't care so much about the final quality, then you make a class out of it. More of a, let's say, entertaining practical event that, let's say, bachelor students can work on it for its design, even to the production of it. If people are interested, if civil engineers are interested enough to make canoes, of course they are interested enough to make also pavement, you know, for pedestrians. So probably that can be a case. Or if you want to make a bridge which is not so, let's say, that like pedestrian bridge, that can be designed as a competition between architects and civil engineers. So eventually maybe they learn how to work together, because up to this point architects design something and structural designs are nagging about it, and the people who want to construct it complain about both of them. So maybe that's using that competence class. No, we cannot. Boudewijn is giving me a sign, so I don't know.
No, I would like to hook into what you're saying right now. Okay. We did a bicycle bridge. We presented it yesterday. I was
late.
Okay, we presented it. The structural engineer had to redesign it, and he put 3 times more in it than originally. Okay. So this was a regular structural engineer. The other thing I learned at Robert, who just spoke at his job site, that the structural engineer who is paid by the hour, and not that Robert is not paying enough, that keeps them poor, but he had only so many hours to calculate the floor. So he put in heavy steel reinforcement. So I looked at it and said, are you going to have a tank rolling over your floor soon? Okay. So the subject of structural engineering has to be redone. And we did that last December. Jacqueline remembers this when she was also hosting, being a moderator. We have a few structural engineers now that are saying, I have good news for you. I am more expensive because I will take more time in calculating and saving you material at the end. Okay. So also, I am thinking also have these type of people identified on the front door. What kind of an engineer are you? What kind of a designer are you? If somebody has the sticker somewhere that yes, he is a sustainable construction designer, then you say, okay, this will give me money. But you need somebody intelligent to say, okay, let's do that. And so we had some fantastic, last December, you can check them back, by the way. It's on YouTube, these presentations. But yes, okay.
Maybe I can say something about it, or I have some points. So first of all, regarding architects and engineers, there as well, I have to say, I know some really nice examples which work quite nicely, where we have had some nice projects with architectural and engineering students working together. and the way how the students treat themselves and their group and their team and prospective architects, if they will become a civil engineer, is completely different to what I see right now in the environment where students of different disciplines do not work together. So this is definitely making a great impact. And again, I would like to point out that this is currently highly depending on the personal engagement of the teachers. So if the teachers are interested to do interdisciplinary projects, and this includes economical aspects, this includes pedagogics, for example, as well, environmental engineering students. If we teachers want to do these kind of interdisciplinary projects and we connect with other teachers from other disciplines, we can make these projects work, and we will do, and we act as multiplicators, and these projects work quite nicely. My only question is, we could do this in a better way. So I have seen, especially regarding concrete, Eindhoven and Delft do so nice projects, and they are, you see them directly on the internet if you start searching for projects. So the Netherlands is really, really good in that, but I think the rest of the world is not so good. So we could adopt some of the things like Mrs. Kramer had her talk, the ideas. This is something we could adopt also in other countries as well. The question is, who gives us the time and who gives us the funding? So I would like to get back to the funding. And I think the second point I just forgot now, but I think this is something we can also talk about. And I think all of you can say something about it, how we could proceed with that.
Can I talk about the funding?
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
We are 10 years ago, a young student just finished his study. I asked about his future and in Toronto, and I took him for lunch. And I told him about sustainability, that this is the future thing to do. And he recontacted me a couple of weeks ago. Michael knows about this, because I also put him in contact with Michael from the Globe Consensus. He is at an NGO that advises investors, okay, venture capitalists. You have many people who have a bad conscience about how they lived and how they got rich, and now they want to before they die, they want to get clean in their head, and they want to spend all the money. There is no problem in capital. There is so much money, especially for Africa, where they all feel sorry about conditions and climate change. Let's cash in on that. But we have to, in order to get the big fish on financing, you need this good and appetizing bait, okay? And this is one of my objectives to do this. So we are preparing in this direction. So that also right now, when you see the money that they want to put into the environmental friendly activities in Brussels, it's amazing. But nobody realizes that sustainable concrete should be cheaper than regular concrete, okay? Because there is less Portland cement in it. Now the question is, why doesn't it work on the market? Those are my preoccupations, okay? And I know I have the answers, but the answers are not in technology. The answers are in culture, so
Just increase the price of CO2 emissions.
Well, of course.
Actually, this is something I wanted to say. The only reason that in Europe you start caring about these things, or let's say you've been caring about this thing, is because of all the regulations, all the, let's say, fine that are in play. Let's say somewhere in my country or in India or in China, I don't think that there is any sort of, I mean, if there is any regulations, I'm not aware of it. And since everybody said life stories, let me tell you one, although I'm relatively young. So I had a talk, I'm a bioengineer by practice because I'm a civil engineer by practice because my parents are also civil engineers. So I was running in construction sites since I was 6, I guess. So I had my first injury in construction, first head injury in construction site. So I was having a talk with my mom 2 weeks ago, and she was explaining to me that she's she's constructing a concrete structure, concrete house, and they are using waffle sealing to reduce the amount of material inside the ceiling. And she was asking me if I think it's meaningful to have 40 centimeters or something like that. This is according to Iranian standard, which is based on ACI, so based on American standard. And then I was asking her, how much is the compressive strength? And she said, 30 megapascal. And I was like, Mom, they'll die there. Like, since I learned concrete design in Germany, for me, when someone tells me that you have 30 megapascal of compressive strength, for me, it's just a joke. And then I said, they don't put enough cement inside? She said, no, it has 360 kilogram per cubic meter. And I was like, then how much water does it have? So, and when I was trying to give her some advice, like ask them to reduce the water to binder, just put some super plasticizer, they have these things back home. She was like, I tell them, but they will not do it. There is no concrete plant that produces above 50 megapascal concrete in my country currently. So how do you want to change these, these concepts?
Because the knowledge, the concrete knowledge is being colonialized by cement producers. And I always repeat, in what car would you drive when the steel industry would have designed the car?
Oh, steel cars.
We would have tanks.
Ah, that's what you meant.
Okay.
But most people drive tanks these days. If you look at the streets of Berlin, they all drive 2.5 tons SUVs. I think we are very close to that.
Yeah, but the fuel consumption went down all the time. Okay, while this has not happened in the concrete construction. This is because they consider concrete a packaging of their product. In the Netherlands, when they sell you ask concrete with less cement, they will charge you for disrupting their process. You have to pay 4 euros more from a Heidelberg controlled company, okay? Because they are making money on the cement, they're making money on the aggregates, and they say, okay, well, the way to sell it is by selling the concrete. 50 to 80% of the ready-mix concrete in Europe, at least also North America, is controlled by the cement industry. And this is what I learned from Rainer in Dar es Salaam when he gave a presentation. In a healthy market, there is only one party that says what quality is, and that's the customer, not the supplier, and certainly not the supplier of the supplier. So for heaven's sakes, and also for the sake of the cement industry, because they don't know what to do now, they are lost. Well, they have to go from volume thinking to quality thinking. They have to go away from prescriptive standards to performance standards. They have to say that we don't know what we are doing, because you are not putting the building or the bridge 28 days underwater at 20 degrees. Okay, at least we don't. And you don't know if it was cast at 28 degrees instead of 20 degrees from your laboratory. So this all has to, we have to really go back to the square one and say, okay, what are we going to teach? What are we telling them? Saying here is the push the button on the EN206, and then you can say which button, the German button with a water binder ratio of 0.92, or the British button with the same material using 0.40 water binder ratio. What is this pseudo technology? Okay, so I don't know. I think maybe Robert's idea on getting this. Oh, by the way, it was Robert's son idea of getting making YouTubes. As Esther said, that's what's inspiring right now the students more maybe than the teacher.
I think the new social media is Clubhouse. So if you want to start something, I suggest that we start in Clubhouse. At least we start with the latest version of social media. So.
Yes. So maybe one. Sorry.
I just wanted to, if there's a chance, I just wanted to add something from my maybe the education perspective in everything. So in terms of, I think when you want to teach concrete, when it comes to different countries, and it's good that we can now engage in this way where different perspectives are coming up. So I like that what Shireen is saying, because that's what is happening to me. So when I'm reading literature, it's not applying to my context most of the time. So I think as we're trying to teach these competitions, or we're trying to introduce these new ways of teaching, we need to also make sure that it is trying to match the context that they're using. As Boudewijn said, that, for example, in Africa, they like using rice husks to, for better, material or cheaper. And so it has to be context specific. And also the fact that we also need to think about the culture, the economics, the social life, and everything in between. So the students need to know all that. That means the interdisciplinarity is very important. Like Marietta said, that if the educators can just collaborate, that would be very easy. But it's not very easy in a structure where that is not happening. So we just need a lot of promotion of that as well. Like you can work together. For example, communications is not supposed to be taught separately from other things. They can just teach it all together with the other subjects, because you need to communicate all these subjects to people. So something like that. And I would also like to encourage, how do we change things? We change things by doing what they call moving from effective teaching. So now we're trying to teach effectively with good methods, but we can move from that to actually scholarly teaching, where we are reading other people's material and we're trying to apply to our own teaching, and then slowly move into like researching our own teaching, reflecting on our own teaching, which would help, so you can also help others that way. And so that there's not only like 3 teachers who teach well and then the rest of us are just boring, because we don't really want to be boring. It just happens that maybe that's your experience. You've been taught like that, and this is how you're teaching. It's not that you want your students to be bored. No. So yeah, so I think that's my 2 cents on from the education point of view.
Actually, Esther, it took me, so I teach few exercises per year for concrete design, and I have my own style of talking and teaching. So I sit on the table and I do crazy things. And usually that keeps the student engaged, and I take them to the lab and force them to mix everything themselves and humiliate them if they don't work. So that's my style. It's not really acceptable or in the, let's say, guideline of university. So this year that I had to record it because of COVID, I was really paranoid that people will see how I take on this class. But I think you are right. My problem is that a lot of people don't think, okay, I'm teaching for 30 years. Do I have the same style that I had 30 years ago? They don't even reflect.
Can I interrupt? Jacqueline
Sure.
Jacqueline is leaving. Jacqueline, do you have a closing word, please? Jacqueline, can you demute Jacqueline, please?
I listened carefully to your discussion, and I thought it's not really valuable that I comment, but let's the ones who get educated comment. So thank you for all your valuable information. And my problem of, well, just trying to work outside the concrete industry on education is problematic, because the concrete sector should also learn to change and use the new methods. So this competition Boudewijn was talking about, I really like that. I don't have an idea where we can find money, but at least the idea is good. But I am also very, very much intrigued by how can we bring this new technology to the old organization, because the old organization has to change. The companies have to take up these new technologies, and there must be a connection. So I was a little lost, Boudewijn, when you said that. I understand that such a competition can be organized by the educational institutes, fine, but it would be wonderful if it is also promoted by the proactive companies within the concrete sector, in order to make sure that there comes a connection. And we have the example of the solar race, where there are also quite some companies interested in the new designs that the students make at the TU Delft, and also in Eindhoven, and even in Twente. It is really a very popular competition, the solar race, every year. So so I don't believe that you can expect changes in industry without new ideas from the younger generation that are really getting supported and also understood by the old generation. That is my last comment, and I need to leave because I have an appointment at 5:30 somewhere else. So I need to check out. I hope to see you again, and it was a pleasure being with you.
Thank you. We'll get the industry mobilized. If they realize, many of them realize that they are not making the money they should, and that the failure costs remain very high in construction. I think you have very much confidence in the other strong lady we both know very well, Doreen Staal from a company. I think we can get the companies mobilized. They know that we can save money, we can save CO2 at the same time. We can save raw materials. It's very much of a win-win. And they already, and you see companies like BAM, a big contractor in the Netherlands, with a total new management, and they're shaking up the whole industry. So
that's what I mean. Yeah. Okay. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
And Michael, sorry, I'm not leading this, but Michael, I see Michael is also present. Michael Havro-Faber. I don't know what. Maybe I give too much time to the older generation, Marijke. You just shut me up, okay?
That's totally fine. Actually, as you're mentioning, Michael, I see there are still a few other people still in the panel. So as Wolfram did it yesterday, that everyone who would like to take part in the discussion, we could open the discussion to all the listeners now. So please, if you would like to introduce yourself and just give your intentions and opinions regarding education methods or what we could do, please go ahead.
Michael is raising his hand. Can you, is he demuted? Michael, we don't hear you yet.
It seems your microphone, because you are unmuted. We should hear you, but we don't hear you.
I remember that he wanted to say something also yesterday, that he said he should.
Yes, I know. That's why I phoned him yesterday. I felt bad about that. Michael, are you there? Something is not working.
So as soon as it works, maybe you just step into. Is there anyone else who would like to start into our discussion?
Hello. Who is this? That was me. We don't hear you very well.
But at least there's sound now.
What about now?
Yes, now.
Fantastic.
Very nice.
Okay, sorry about the hiccups.
Now we don't hear you.
That's the problem when you get the older generation. You might hear me, but no, I don't.
No.
Maybe.
What?
No. Yes.
It's good. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have had problems with my setup all day in 7 different meetings, but I always managed to find a solution. No, it has been really cool listening to your observations and the exchanges. The education is a super important issue here, and you know, when we look at the let's call it the sustainability quest, which we are engaging in here from let's say a narrow angle of material, cementitious material perspective for the built environment, but the overall context is of course much larger. There's one thing which I don't hear reflected too well in any of the exchanges, and this is what I would maybe associate with what I consider to be the urgency in what we need to do. We are still talking about things which can be done, which relate to, it's like the quest is really very much related to the same type of problem of changing the course of a supertanker within a few seconds, knowing that it could well take a couple of hours, right? And a big part of the issue here is that for a very structured and smooth transition, it would take a very long time to actually manage, because we have to deal with a change of best practices in the educational system on the one side, but we probably also need to we need to engage in a change of best practices on the financial markets altogether. the expectations of populations with respect to how they can, within their own lifetime, develop welfare and meaningful lives, and into the technological progress, organizational progress. We are suffering a lot from, let's say, best practices, which will take decades, if not more, to change if we don't somehow find an angle to get the urgency a little better into the picture. So that's one observation, but it's a very true observation also when it comes to education, because the professors, the teachers at universities, when they get into the system, it will take another 30 or 40 years to get them out again. And they are not so easy to move. And also what we are fighting right now at the, let's say in academia, in teaching institutions, is that the funding for the teaching, we see it more and more, and here in Denmark, I think it's not different many other places. We are being reimbursed for our teaching efforts through the number of successful candidates. And we are fighting like crazy to get the bigger share of the students from the other universities and from abroad. And then we are fighting to get them through so that they, in the end, will stand with a certificate, because then we get paid. And as you well appreciate, there are lots of problems associated with this process. So there is, let's say, an inclination to make students, to take students who should probably never have been in the university. And then when they are in the system, for sure, we really need them to take their exam and get their certificate. Otherwise, it was not worthwhile. So we are mass producing, let's say, candidates. Some of them are surely super good, but some of them are not really worth the effort. We have to appreciate that. So there's something also on the best practice of how we are running society right now. Then I would like to hear from you. So I will come with a couple of, let's call them maybe skewed, biased observations. But one of the concerns I have is that what we experience in this competition for getting all the students and all the best students is that we have to make things sexy. And conceptual knowledge, of course, it can be provided in many different ways, and it doesn't have to be absolutely boring. But conceptual knowledge is not going to offer you during your studies a lot of interactions across disciplines and industrial engagements and visits at the construction sites and travels to A and B. Conceptual knowledge, it also takes a lot of just studying engagement in books, thinking, making some small tests, going to the lab and seeing for yourself how it can work. Conceptual knowledge, in my perspective, is what we need the new candidates to possess to a degree that they don't jump in to the best practice and participate in the best practice, but they challenge best practice, because for all we know, the best practice which we have at present is not adequate. It simply doesn't work, right? It has brought us to the position where we are now. And what we in society need are someone who are strong enough to go out and say, this doesn't work, guys. You cannot continue like this, and this is how it could be done, right? Standards and codes, they are largely lagging 30, 40 years behind insights in knowledge and let's say the frontiers of science. And this is what we cannot bear right now. So on the one side, standards and codes, they are a problem because of this. But on the other side, if we look at the urgency of the quest we are in, we also have to appreciate that standards and codes may be one of the instruments whereby we, with one twist on the screw, can make changes across all the industries and best practices involved in the built environment. So it is also a possibility to get a hold on all the actors in the context of the built environment. But coming back to my question, so do you see, how do you actually see this demand for sustainable developments in the built environment? Is it something you see, yeah, maybe 10, 15, 20 years we will have developed a couple or a spectrum of new, let's say, bases for concretes, and then we are happy? Or, I mean, how do you see a sustainable development from your perspective for the built environment? And maybe I will just add one thing I told also Boudewijn yesterday evening on the phone. It's a very provocative kind of observation I once in a while give to my students, that the concrete, let's say, material scientists are a little bit like our time of alchemists. So they go to the lab, they put a little bit of this, they put a little bit of that, and then they see an improvement on this or on that. And they are all hoping eventually to find gold, and all these new material technologies are being implemented, and these people who do it, they're very happy to see all their ideas, or many of them, being realized in projects or put into standards. That's even better. But in the best practice of managing the built environment, every time we find a new thing, it totally disrupts our possibilities to collect information, and based on information, based on experience, on performances of different types of materials under different contexts, we are not able to do it because we don't know what materials are being used out there, in which structures, and we have no collection of all the relevant data which would give us a feedback on the pros and the cons. So this is one of the best practices where all these individual developments are failing actually to produce anything of value for society. Even though the individual projects are cool and spectacular, they don't give us anything. Yeah, so back to the question.
Yes.
How do you see it possible?
Maybe I just start very shortly, because thank you very much for this long talk, but I think very, very important topics. And the question you just gave to us, I think we have to give to our students as well, or maybe also to people we're connected with, especially in our job. First of all, how I see it, I think this is not an answer I can give directly, because it's completely depending from which point of view I answer, from which country I answer, from which job, or from which standpoint I answer, because my impression is that I have to be very pessimistic, because we are, as you say, we're doing a little bit of this and we're doing a little bit of that, and we should do this and we should do that. And at the same time, mega cities are arising, and there is no other opportunity than concrete and steel. And you asked me on Tuesday, and the question was totally correct. We need equality in the world, and many people need these kind of circumstances where we need to build in a special way, which consumes just a lot of materials, and we don't have the perfect solution on that. So globally spoken, I don't have a solution for that, except for maybe really trying not to use too many resources, just reducing everything. And where we can reduce, we reduce, and where we cannot reduce because we need infrastructure for human beings, we have to take this. And everything else is a political question, like reducing or like increasing CO2 prices. This is the first thing. If we increase CO2 prices, companies have to find solutions, and they have to take these solutions, which are already existent. So this is the first thing.
But this is not so easy, increasing CO2 prices.
I know.
Where do you set so who is going to pay for that?
Yes.
And this is for sure the upcoming economies who are going to pay that bill.
Yes, this is the problem. I know that. I think from a political or from an economic point of view, increasing CO2 prices is like, yes, they will have, they won't do that. But
it's
from my point of view,
it's modern days slavery. I mean, this is what it is. It's just pushing the burden somewhere else to someone who cannot afford it, right?
Yes. So still, I don't know how companies could try to really want to find a solution which might be more complicated than they currently have, if it is not 100% clear that they increase their profit. Of course, this has to be done by education, but this is only a slight point. So the question is really pessimistic, actually, just from my point of view. Of course, I don't have a solution, but this is how I would answer your question. And I would give over to Simone Stürwart, because she just entered and she raised her hand. And please introduce yourself, and maybe you already have a really nice answer on that.
Thanks a lot. Yes, my name is Simone, and I just dropped in because I had to give a lecture. And thank you for having me, first of all. And yeah, I'm in Switzerland, and I'm a professor at the University for Applied Science. I'm an expert in structure concrete, and also I work with the material itself. I lead a testing lab, and we do a lot of projects with the material, with the structure, and also with life cycle assessments. And to answer your question, I think we need sustainable materials to use as an alternative to concrete. And that needs a lot of knowledge, because then we use more varied, more alternatives, more different materials, and it is not easy to handle that. But most important, it is that we will produce sustainable structures. Not only the material is important. In the end, we need low CO2 emission for the whole building, or for the whole structure, or for whatever construction we produce. And the codes up to now, they did not focus on sustainability at all. I think that's the problem. It takes about more than 10 years to write a code, and up to 5 years ago, no one cared about sustainability within the codes. So we have to change our focus, I think.
But who is going to change that focus? Because it's you and me who are sitting in the code committees.
Doing just today, 1 hour ago, I got a new national document, a draft from Switzerland about EN 206, and so we will change the requirements.
the Euro codes in the basis for design documents. There are absolutely no provisions for sustainability.
And I don't know, Simone, if you were still present when one of these professors from Japan, I will not use his name, he was sitting on a modification for his report on recycling for 8 years, okay?
Yes, because, I remember.
because he loved traveling, okay? And you could always meet him. He was like you call a congressman, okay? He would always be on a congress. So finally, the chairman of this committee 7, he said, well, when are you finishing your report? And then, oh, yeah. So he sent in a report, and then the guy from the FIB, the chairman, he sent it to me and said, can you please have a look at it? If it's how it is, the quality. And then I said, well, I sent it on to the specialist, and he said, oh my God, what a report, okay? And so I was the messenger of this, so I got killed, okay? But what we see right now is very encouraging. We see that young people, Esther, I don't know how much money you would have gotten to fly from Australia to let's say Amsterdam to come and talk here, okay? We have now smart people coming in and they can have a say and we can get on with things maybe faster, Michael. There's a big opportunity to get people who don't get the funding yet they have the brains to contribute. So I have some hope, but we have to do innovations not just in the technologies. We have to do it in process and systems.
The thing about technology is that it's actually applied technique, right? And it's the application. So one postulate I would like to bring forward is that probably 80% of the problems could be solved with 20% of the efforts. And the remaining 20 requires 80% of the efforts. So the message here is that we actually do know by far and large what to do and what not to do, but we are not able to implement it. So guys, if we wanted to, we could put up a concrete milkery on the dark side of the moon within a year or so. This is what we can do in our civilization. We have the means, we have the knowledge, but on this point here, we are simply not able to establish the governance and the let's say daily operation of production and manufacturing. We are not able to make the changes there with the available technique capacity that we have. Technology is applied technique, so we are failing on the technology.
I'm sorry, I have a feeling that Mareike is not here, so is she? Yes. Okay, she's back.
Yes.
I have a feeling that Wolfram raised his hand when you were gone, and Elizabeth, and then Wolfram waited so long that he brought it down. So I don't know.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to say, sorry, Mareike, just wanted to remind that basically we were talking about education. We are currently starting again to discuss what all has to change, and it's true, we know what is to change. I just wanted to go back to the track of the, let's say, of the today's session, and I think the only way how we can get forward is indeed education, because if we know standardization is going to be too long, we are so much sticking to our past technologies. The only way how we can change something, and that's what Michael said, is you and me. or also those people we're educating. So the only thing that we can do is to train conscious personalities that can assess the technology, which we don't even know today. We don't know what is going to happen in 10 years, but we have to train people who have the consciousness, who have the awareness and also the skill to deal with technologies which they have never heard. So these people have to grow next to us, and they have to grow bigger than we are. And I think that is the biggest problem, that at the universities, and I think those people who are in the research field know the very best. If you are a professor, or if you are a supervisor or something like this, you never, most of the people, we have so much vanity in our scientific community that we never want a tree to grow higher than our own tree. So people always have to stay in the shadow instead of looking that people probably use our tree to grow much broader than we are. And I think this is the way how we have to teach the students. If we teach standards, I can also give a book to a student and tell this student, read this book, and in 3 days I will ask you what you can read on page 3, because the standard is going to change. So if I teach a standard of today, in a couple of years the standard will be changed, and the student can only deal with this one standard, even though the student will probably work in China, where he has never been taught about Chinese standards, or somewhere in the United States. So the people have to understand the fundamentals, and they have to be trained on the skill to develop these fundamentals into the future. And that's the only way how we can get forward. We can talk about democratization, we can talk about policies, we can talk about all kinds of things, but at the end of the day, individuals are acting, and only individuals can change something. And this is where we have to go. And probably we have to really reflect on our entire educational system, and also on our entire standardization system, where probably we really have to develop something completely new. But sorry, that was already too lengthy. I just wanted to go back into the educational track. And I see the hand of Elisabeth, but Mareike is the boss, so you decide who's next.
This is totally fine. So first of all, I would like to officially close the session soon, because we have already reached the 5:30. But I would say, please, Elisabeth, first of all, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I think most everyone was here yesterday, but the ones that weren't, yeah, my name is Elisabeth, and my background education, I will try to make this fast. I had so many things I could say from everything you said. But yeah, so I studied environmental engineering in the old school system, this diploma thing in Europe. So I had like a 5-year degree of engineering, where I had this typical, very boring classes, falling asleep, everything. And then later I did an international master, 2 years. It was in Europe, but still I was jumping from university to university. So I had like these different views of how education can be. And then I really saw, oh, this is how different can be. So I could talk a lot about that, but I will jump that because that's not helpful. I just wanted to leave some ideas that came to mind. I agree totally with what Wolfram said, and most of you said until now, of course. We need a change, and I also do share this pessimistic view some days, like Mareike was saying, that it's like, oh my God, it's hopeless. Like, why? And this is what I realized, that many students, the younger generation, has this hopelessness feeling, and it's what I try to do, although I'm not teaching or anything. I don't even have a job in academia right now. But what I tried to do when I was in this position to do something, to say something to the students, was to try to motivate them. And I'm telling you, it was really hard because of what Wolfram told about the ego of the professors. So the professors are so threatened by the young postdocs being better that they try to push us a bit down. So it was kind of it was strange. So what I think one big problem is impossible to solve, that is people's ego and people's personality, and this thing about like the older generation, they feel a bit threatened. So I was accused, for example, of trying, really, all letters, the professor told me, Elisabeth, what are you doing trying to change a 30-year-old system? And I was like, yes. Like, this is exactly like, dude, it's 30 years old, but okay. So of course I don't want to be offensive, so I let it go. But yeah, this was the example. Then the students, the young generation, then could see this clash, the clash already of generation. And they are not even in this clash yet. They were just observing, right? And so this is very disconcerting, and it worries me really that this is happening. But okay, so I still now something positive. I would say that to help the change everywhere, it doesn't matter if it's in politics, in industry, yeah, in university. I think that for sure we should continue fighting. And I think this idea of the sharing information is very important. So YouTube reports, but also what we're doing now. So this meeting people, the connections I think is the most important. Sometimes just you knowing the right person in the right moment, and you have the right information, and then you know someone that knows someone, maybe, you know, just the trust. So people usually, they give value to different people for some whatever reason, right? And I think this happens. I know stories from university professors that also just happen to make a study totally independent, and then they just happen to know someone that knows this politician, whatever, and then he just delivers this report to this politician, and the politician then can suddenly make an informed environmental sustainable decision because he saw this report. And if this person didn't have this certain friend, this would never happen. So I would just say that yeah, it's impossible to think about changing the system and how people think, but you can think about always trying to participate, and then also motivate students to participate in everything they can. So
but
that's it. Yeah. Sorry,
can I just chip in with a comment, because this is what we see a lot, people playing the system, but the system also has statuses, right? And if you keep feeding the system, you will just it will just grow bigger and bigger and bigger, including the nonsense associated. I like your ideas of challenging the 30 years of best practice, and I think it's much more in that direction that we really need some power.
Michael, when you were talking about this, I was thinking of somebody saying, I'm happy there is a Pope, so I can be against him, okay? So if it's very clear, if they're coming up and say, this is the way to do it, and then we can say, why do you do that? And then then the whole thing is being questioned. So that's why I believe in this. Please let us play. Let it be exciting. Let it be fun. Let's do it. Let's demonstrate. I mean, talking about we were talking a little bit about the interdisciplinary. It is disastrous how these people, the teacher, the professors are working in the silos because they are scared of the other silo beside them. I mean, right now, construction is half of it is installation techniques, you know, heating, cooling, it's incredible. Do you think that the building guy knows about the mechanical guy? He doesn't dare to, because he doesn't understand it himself. So sorry.
Sorry to interrupt you, but this is exactly what I just said, that there are already some really nice educational projects on this, some really big projects. I really would like to mention the Solar Decathlon here, because this is an international educational student project where students from all disciplines of engineering, especially of course mechanical, architectural, and civil engineer, but we have also some other disciplines, and we all together have to consider a building which is as environmentally friendly as possible. And this is a competition. this is international. We get interdisciplinary gains because we have to connect with students from other disciplines. We have to learn their language. We have to consider these technical problems. Actually, we have to find solutions for how does the material work together with the technical equipment, which is like one thriving question. And the students are so much into that. This is so amazing. The students are working longer than me, and I work very long. And they are sitting nights, and in the morning they are like, okay, I have managed my calculation, and I'm so tired. And it's not one student, it's not two students, it's like hundreds of students. There are so nice projects. It's applicable. It's just that it's not that the concrete industry is involved in that, I would say. It's more like the official environmentally friendly, sustainable area. So it's more the people who really work on wood and photovoltaics and clay wood and maybe hybrid structures, but never there are so many people involved with concrete, I would say. So concrete could go inside and learn to work interdisciplinary as well. This is the first thing. And the second thing, and I would like to come back to Michael, is that this is really nice, but he asked us, how do we see sustainable change? And still, I would say, these interdisciplinary student projects are the best thing I ever know. I love them, and this is the best thing I can do. And I really try to engage myself into this. But first of all, this is not enough. And secondly, it's too late. This is what Shireen said. We should go to elementary schools. So this is what I just wanted to say.
I am going to elementary schools in Africa to make the prisons, okay, in the kitchen, okay, get them involved, and so really, I mean this. In the second phase, we have this minds, models, masterpieces idea, okay, and if you go into the models and you say you get engaged with the kitchen and you show the materials, what do you have here, and do this, and you a little bit of admixture, and so wow, this is magic, okay, what is happening, I see this all possible. We need, or maybe it's an idea to do the solar decathlon, enlarge it. Maybe that's an idea, or make the solar decathlon say you should be reconstructable or multifunctional elements. Maybe it's an idea. It would be the easier one to go than my suggestions. But I wanted to connect it with sociology and with philosophy as well. That's why I came up with these ideas, because they have this interracial aspects to it. They have the respect for each other's way of thinking, the religions we got from our parents and don't know what to do with it, you know. So this is if we can, maybe we can enlarge it. Okay, I don't know.
Maybe I mean, instead of focusing on interdisciplinary projects like the solar decathlon, I had the pleasure of being in Paris for the solar decathlon at the climate meeting, which was coinciding. That was fantastic. There were so many fantastic projects. I totally agree. But maybe instead of focusing on such let's say spectacular student projects, other interesting projects could be formulated, and one of the let's say things I believe would be able to push something would be to identify a list of the most severe bottlenecks for sustainable built development, sustainability in the built environment. That in order to really assess and rank bottlenecks, it takes a huge amount of conceptual and interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary activities. And if we would establish, let's say, within the community, a consensus. Okay, so you can always debate, is number 3 actually number 7, or how to differentiate the more detailed ranking of bottlenecks. But that would be a very good contribution, which would showcase to the industry and to the politicians where to go, right? Instead of running around and finding yet another chemical which can expose whether carbonatization has taken place in a cross section of a very specific concrete with furnace ashes or whatever, right? Something which would have the potential for changes at large scale.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Really quick. Actually, I had another question. So wouldn't it be possible also to, when we do research, to try to write our papers also in a way, not try to write the papers, but I don't know, like write reports besides the papers. Of course, I don't want to change the science community now, but I think that many solutions could be, they actually are business opportunities, just that the companies don't see it as a business opportunities. I mean, sustainability can, and being greener can be actually a really good business opportunity, and also can bring you a lot of votes. Just the politicians and so this information, this notion is just somehow, it's not being well interpreted. Oh, and I don't understand why, because I actually hear about sustainability since the 90s, and somehow I feel like it didn't happen yet after more than 20 years. It's like I hear about it, but it's not a thing. And I don't understand how it's not a thing, because it could be a good business actually for your company. So
but this is a good approach, because I mean, this is one of the skills that has to be taught at universities, which is mostly not taught, and that is communication. Yes. As a researcher, you're typically assessed based on the number of publications. And I mean, most of my colleagues here, I would say about 80% are chemists or physicists mostly, and they are proud of publishing papers where you can already not understand the title of the paper. Yeah. So, but they, you know, for them, this is like being cooler than the rest. And I think that is exactly the wrong approach. And this is where we have to go very early, and no matter whether it's about interdisciplinarity, about intercultural construction, working in the profession later on, communication is always one of the most important skills. And I studied in Aachen, which is an engineering forge, and you could see this huge amount of typical engineers running around in Aachen, where you can see these groups of like 3 to 5 guys all wearing the same kind of suits, mostly completely out of fashion. You could see they are not good in communicating. You could see it, you can feel it, it was in the air. And I think we have to probably teaching communication is much more important than teaching some very deep secrets of structural design or whatsoever, because that you can still learn during your professional lifetime. But communication is something which probably is particularly formed at the age when you're a student, probably directly in the beginning. And that would be already an approach, probably, really to teach students for their later life to communicate what they're doing, to communicate innovation and sustainability in all directions. I think that would be at least a tangible approach.
And on the other hand, I like the idea to mention the business case, because many people in academia, they don't think about bringing ideas to market. And that's also very important. If you have new findings, very interesting results, you should bring it to market. And I think it's also a question of education to think about that and to bring it there.
That's exactly, by the way, what Funzo Falada said. These students are not taught business administration, or while most of them will go outside of the science, okay? They will have another job. They are not being taught how to set up a company or have a startup and so on.
Actually, actually, it's worse than that. They are not taught because actually in science, industry is a demon. It's like if you are a scientist and you mentioned that you are interested in going to industry, and all the professors, everyone, all your community will immediately demonize you. Like, oh my God, seriously, it's not about that they are not taught. It's like a no-go thing. It's like if you cannot be a scientist and think about doing anything to help industry. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, but there are also counterexamples. So I know.
Yeah, there are exceptions.
Super good counterexample where let's say students or experts in material science and structural engineering got together with students coming out of business management, and they realized a fantastic business.
Yes,
but were they trained on it during the studies? They weren't.
No, it was not that the structural engineer or the material scientist was trained in business, but they joined up. They joined up with people who were.
Yeah, but I think if this would be more on the curriculum, there would be more. And certainly there are always positive examples.
The more time we take out, let's say, time for conceptual knowledge, yeah, you can increase on other competences, but in the end, you're just going to get a total washout who knows a bit about basically nothing, right?
Yeah,
so
certainly it's difficult.
I think what we need to promote these interactions, right? So we need to introduce our good students to students who have insight in markets and the communication and.
I think therefore it's very good that Simone is here, because Elisabeth announced something that in the, let's say, ivory tower science, it is a kind of a taboo to think about getting into the industry. But if you get to the universities of applied sciences, it's a completely different story. And many of these students, they already have a history, a working history, so they are much more mature when they start studying. And you can see it, I'm lecturing at the university and also at the University of Applied Science. And you can see the students at the universities, they never ask questions afterwards. The students of the universities of applied sciences, they start to discuss, and we have some really lively discussions afterwards. You see there's a different confidence. And I think the Netherlands, they are really blessed because they have a limited number of scientific universities. And it is not, let's say, a taboo to go to a University of Applied Sciences. Switzerland is also doing very well. They have a very good structure. But in Germany, we have so many universities. They all try to fight to be the best, highest level scientific university. But at the end of the day, if you're a research institute in concrete structures, you all need some fundamental equipment. So all the money that is available for excellent research is distributed over a very huge group of universities. And therefore, they all end up being kind of mediocre. I don't want to say this, we have very good universities with excellent equipment, but you know, if you would probably reduce the number of very scientific universities to half of it, we could spend the money in more excellence, while those people who are required, who are really doing the transmission from research to the industry, they are probably more those people in the applied universities. And we should rate them much higher and put much more effort into this, because I think those posh scientific ivory tower researchers, we need them as well, but probably the balance is not correct to bring the knowledge into the market. And in some countries, I think this is country specific.
now we are talking about education and best practice, right? I also would like to challenge a little bit the perspective which we're taking now, looking from the very much from the perspective, which is also super fine, and it's also very rightly put. So how can the teaching, how can the educational system be better? But I just want to share an experience. Some 10 years ago, I went to Tsinghua University in Beijing, and I lived there for half a year. And I was giving lectures every week, 2 times. My lectures took place from 8 o'clock in the evening till 11 o'clock, because these students, they have courses all over the day, and they also have an app around lunchtime, and that also takes a little bit of their time away. So it was a couple of late evening lectures. And the first day I showed up to give my lecture, I guess there were like 40 students sitting in the room. It was a specialized lecture on risk modeling and probabilistic modeling in general in civil engineering. And I took the PowerPoint to the screen, and people, they looked very nice. The students looked very nice. They were looking at me. I had eye contact, and then I started to give my presentation. And after 5 or 10 minutes, I realized that the eyes were moving in all sorts of directions, and I was totally losing control of the lecture. And then I just stopped. And then I walked to the closest desk and I sat down, and then I said, listen guys, something is not completely working according to your expectations and also not to mine. So let's talk. What is going wrong here? And then after a while, I had to put a little bit of pressure on. And then this relatively small Chinese woman, she stood up at the back row, and then she said, well, she would like me to know that they already read the book, and they actually also already studied the PowerPoint slides, and they were not too much interested in me telling what was in the book and on the PowerPoint slides. They would be much more interested in my perspectives to the various assumptions and alternative ideas and approaches, and how this might find applications in let's say their further career development. So from that moment, I just forgot about my planned lectures, and then we had discussions where the students, I asked the students, okay, so on this and that, how do you appreciate what was in the book? And then we picked up, let's say, from that perspective, things to talk about of real relevance, and I enjoyed it. It was basically impossible to prepare, but the sessions, they were super good, and the students were happy. Now, my point is, I was a professor at ETH at that time, so when I returned from Tsinghua, I thought, okay, let's see what we can do with this concept at home. And I had a talk with my students, and I told them about this good experience, and they said, yes, it sounds really good. Let's go for that. But I had to give up, because the students, they never read the book. They never prepared reading the PowerPoint presentation before the lectures. They just went into the classroom, they sat down, and they expected me to deliver a lecture. Yeah. So it's a little bit, it goes both ways, right?
Incredible. I have a total different question right now. A Professor van Breugel from the Technical University of Delft, who was just an emeritaat, he proposed a serious gaming. I don't know if you know the concept. that they do it in medical education as well. But he proposed serious gaming. He came up with the figures on how much governments can save on failures. He has it all in figures, and how much you can save on prolonging the life cycle of a viaduct or whatever infrastructure. But he said you have to combine not just the students, not just engineering students, but also the sociologists, the people in rechten, I forgot, the legal education. So multidisciplinary serious gaming. It was very expensive what he said we need, but he demonstrated an incredible savings that could take place, and he had it all figured out. Maybe I can get Klaas van Breugel to share this with us again. But has anybody heard about this concept of serious gaming? No? Mm-hmm. Simone, you have. Mm-hmm. Tell me, Simone.
Yes, I think it's about to put all together and to have projects which are real projects and real problems, and then you have to work on that multidisciplinary. Isn't it like that?
Yeah. Yes,
yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, but when I came up with my improved concrete canoe idea, he said, "Oh well, that's too light." Okay, he had a far bigger idea on this, but I will share this with you guys. And by the way, I mentioned that the other day as well. There is this slag valorization from the University of Leuven coming up in April, and I'm presenting a paper called "Getting It on the Market." Okay, so they accepted the paper because they realized that there was an interest for that, and the University of Leuven has a spin-off of guys making geopolymer concrete from slag, from metal industry. And I talked with him the other day, and he has now 9 people working in the company. Within 2 years, bang, he's off to the races. He's having a lot of fun, and but they're doing very well. So this teaching business development, I think, is also one of the things we could do. Michael, before you came in a little later, but I had a whole list of things that the global consensus could be doing, together with the Pantheon Performance, and this is one of them. I think, the assisting startup companies in this. So.
Yeah,
but after all, I think we still have to, even though there are so many possibilities to, let's say, make education more sexy, we also have to find a balance between the different modules. For example, more or less by force, because we wrote a paper in cement and concrete research on education and engineering. I did a study on the effect of massive open online courses, which is certainly something, MOOCs, which is certainly a buzzword, which was at that time quite popular. But I did a serious literature study, what social scientists and pedagogic scientists and so on studied, and they identified that MOOCs are really super efficient, or online learning is super efficient, exactly for those students which would also learn the classical way the best. But those students who cannot learn in the classical way, for them the MOOCs are even worse. And that is the biggest point. I think we today, in terms of COVID, we dream about everything being digital. We don't have to move anymore. It's true, in certain cases this can help a lot, but this the relation between student and supervisor, student and teacher, and so on, is also extremely important. And I think we have to make sure that we catch all groups and not only create a more and more excellent surrounding, which catches the already excellent people even more, but not those who are left behind. So I think it is really worthwhile thinking about a lot of different alternatives without trying to rubbish the traditional way of teaching, because it also has some pros. And as Michael said before, the expectations of the students are completely different in different cultures, in different regions, also in different types of educational institutions. And I think we should not think about renovation in all directions without also trying to find the positive things in the existing system, because there's also positive things in it. So I think this really has to be done unbiased, and however it works, at the end of the day, it will, no matter what system we can set up and what we will change, and no matter what revolution it will be, it depends upon the individual at the end of the day. Yeah. It's the individual person who can motivate, inspire people, or who can be extremely boring. And we cannot avoid this. We just have to take this into account, and also as a foundation for the considerations of how it works. There are those and there are those, and we have to live with a certain scatter.
I will just, I'm sorry, I have to go very soon, but I just want to throw something on the table before I go. And that is the perspectives that we will not be able to change, let's say, best practices in the educational environment around the globe within any foreseeable time. And it's not going to save us. But what we could do is that we could bypass the educational system, and we can do that by joining up young students around the world in an exchange of knowledge on, let's say, our domain of focus, right? We could establish a platform for sharing knowledge of this particular purpose. We will not be able to reach out and improve educational systems. Of course, we have to do that also, but that's going to take too long. But what we could do is we could establish a platform which is bypassing, let's say, this old monster. Which
I love it, Michael. I love it. Bypassing it.
Yeah.
Well, this goes in the line of my nomads of knowledge, skills, and attitudes. The traveling partner of because the teacher. I agree with Wolfram. He said, don't be paternalistic. Okay, so you have this resistance and where Elizabeth said about these jealous professors who are on their ego, living off their ego, and want to keep it that way.
Yeah. But I think we could make an alternative here.
Yes.
And we could build that up in a collaboration. So equal partnership between the students and the teachers, so to say.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And we could identify and develop the curriculum in a long-term process. develop different types of project activities. It would not only be interdisciplinary, it would be truly multicultural, and it would be sustainable alone from the concept, because we would rely on data communication.
Excellent.
So I think we have one angle there at least to consider. And the benefit of this would be that it would actually be able to change minds at a global scale within the required time frame.
Excellent. I like that. Go almost, indeed bypass the system. Be rebels. That's why, please, Michael, I don't know if you know my big hero, this Sir Ken Robinson. I sent links. He is exactly in that manner. He's in that phase. It's changing education. That's his big thing. But he is also the mentality. He said something like, don't try to fix the old one. That doesn't make sense to revamp something that was outdated to begin with. So I made some notes, but on that. But he said it doesn't make sense. Just try something different.
Yeah, don't try to run over it. Run around.
Yeah.
The question certainly remains who's going to pay for that, but I think that is a challenge,
but I think
which it's not unsolvable.
No,
I think it is possible, but it requires a lot of involvement of individuals. But I think that is a good way to proceed. Yeah.
Yeah, but we just need to join up with some of the younger and some front runners. Not only ourselves, but we need to join up with some young guys.
Sure. I mean, we have excellent team right now already here. I'm very excited about this dynamics of this group, and also it was really very nice to meet Elisabeth, who has a very clear view as well. She's not there anymore, so I can give her all compliments. But let's work on along these lines. Wolfram, the financing, if we have a good case, and if we can identify the people who are part of this as being the future intrapreneurs, and I will send everybody, by the way, this presentation. It's not that I mean it's good, but I let me say I have thought about this. So yeah, I like that, Michael, the bypassing.
Boudewijn, I have to run. I'm totally late, but thank you so much. Thank you for all who are still here, all who are not still here but participated, and not least Boudewijn and Wolfram and other who helped in organizing all this. It has been super good. Thanks.